If I'm able to get my Hashimoto antibodies in normal range with LDN, gut healing, diet changes, am I able to stop LDN altogether as my end goal would be to heal and not be on medications, including thyroid medications, as I have heard the LDN can result in going off those medications. I think I've only had Hashimoto's for 4 years based on historical TSH blood work. So my hope is that I am catching it early to stop progression, reverse damage, and heal my body. Hmm, big question. Lots going on here. I think we're all, I think our end goal is for everybody not to be toting around a bag of medications, right? To have a huge personal pharmacy when we're in our 70s. That isn't necessarily always the case. And the reason is because yes, you can change your gut health. Yes, you can change your diet. So for example, with Hashimoto, it's recommended to be 100% gluten-free 100% of the time. Don't cheat. The reason is because the gluten molecule looks like a thyroid molecule and it can actually attach to the thyroid receptor and further impact thyroid health. You can always go off LDN at any time. You certainly can. You may find that LDN was still working and that stuff comes back. So, and that's happened where people feel really, really good and they're like, oh, I'm healed. I'm great. I don't need to be on LDN anymore. And they stop their LDN. And then over time, and that time frame might be 2 weeks, it might be 2 months, it might be 2 years. They all of a sudden slide back to where they were. And then to try to dig out of that hole can be even more impactful. Whether or not you get off your thyroid medication, I don't know if that's a possibility. Using low dose naltrexone can a lot of times help us minimize how much levothyroxine, liothyronine that we're on, because as thyroid function tends to normalize, we can a lot of times reduce the dose of thyroid medication that we're using for replacement. Whether or not we can stop it altogether, I don't know. It really depends on the individual. Blood work for thyroid, especially Hashimoto's, for Graves, is a whole lot more than TSH. TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. It's a hormone that's produced in the pituitary gland that is sent down to the thyroid gland that sits right underneath your Adam's apple. It's a butterfly-shaped gland. So that hormone is sent down here to make the thyroid work. It literally stimulates the thyroid work. The more hormone that is produced means the more sluggish the thyroid is, because you got to give it more hormone to do some work. So as TSH comes down, that means the thyroid is starting to normalize. But if we don't evaluate T4, levothyroxine, T3, liothyronine, and by the way, T3 is the only active component of thyroid. T4 isn't active. So we don't evaluate that, then we really don't know exactly what's happening in the thyroid. There's also T1 and T2, but we don't usually evaluate those as much. And the reason why this is very important is because when T4 is out floating around in the bloodstream and it lands on a cell, that cell has an enzyme that will pull an iodine off, moving it from T4 to T3. Plucks an iodine off. That enzymatic conversion is based on calcium. It's calcium driven. If you don't convert T4 to T3 as effectively, you literally leach calcium out of your bones. That's why a lot of people with low functioning thyroid for many years often develop osteopenia and osteoporosis. So is it a good idea to stop your thyroid hormone? I don't know. I don't think so. I think from the data that we've had over hundreds of years, I mean, there's literally really good thyroid, hypothyroid books out there as well that literally show that this can be a genetic issue that follows the female side of the tree, which means if I have a thyroid issue, I need to look at my sisters, which I don't have any blood sisters, but definitely my mom, her sisters, my grandmother, her sisters on my mom's side, and follow it all up to my grandma's, blah, 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 my great grandma's, whatever. That doesn't mean I ignore my dad's side. It just means I look at my dad and then I look at his mom, because his brothers may or may not have it, his sister possibly. But again, looking at the female side and how that goes. It's very curious, but when you see what's going on there and you're able to kind of pinpoint it, we can also take a look at, who had the dowager's hump, who was all bent over when they were older. That we can see in pictures. We can go back and look at pictures. But if we look at pictures from the early 1900s, you can pick those people out walking around downtown streets. You can pick them up looking at in the airport, at the mall. They still look the same. We're not treating thyroid the way we really should be. When we only look at TSH, it was never meant to be the gold standard. And that variable of 0.5 to 5 is way too wide. That lab parameter is way too wide. That was based on data from over 100 years ago. It literally was based on information from Dr. Eugene Hertog and German studies in the late 1800s and early 1900s. We've come a long way since then. The way we eat is very different. The way we move is very different. The way we socialize is very different. Our mental status is very different. We can't be basing all of that on 100-year-old data. We need to focus in more now. Dr. Zielsdorf is one of the medical personnel here at the Low Dose Naltrexone Research Trust. She's brilliant. And in that, she explains in her seminars exactly what's going on with thyroid and why thyroid is not very well treated in the US. But this is what really gets me. Is that if thyroid and adrenal status were addressed in every individual, we probably wouldn't have to worry too much about mental health, about cancers, about a wide variety of other disease states. And the reason is because thyroid is the metabolic powerhouse of the entire body. But stress, our adrenal status, is very important to look at as well, because stress dramatically impacts it. So does hormone status. So when we effectively address these issues in the correct order, we can really minimize a variety of disease states that are so debilitating. And Linda and I were talking about this earlier before we came on today, is that we're seeing so many cancers being diagnosed in much younger people. And these are devastating diagnoses. And it's not just cancer, but it's also high blood pressure, infertility, thyroid issues, but also diabetes or metabolic syndrome, insulin resistance. We've got to look at the gut. We've got to look at the basics, and we really need to hone in on that. And we need to address these and address them specifically. Insurance may or may not pay for them. That doesn't mean that you have to get stuck with a $1,500 bill from the lab. There are other labs that are much less expensive, and that doesn't mean that they are less valid. It just means that they are less expensive.